is that's your last resort to use the stick and threaten and stuff like that. We actually, and I think
we aren't doing that. We just keep asking.
no, and you want to keep building the relationship, so that's not going to be the most beneficial approach.
Okay.
I'm hearing a lot of background noise. I don't know what that was, but what I was going to say in regards to that one is, and I think I may have touched on it on the last Zoom call that we had with Uncle Karl, but I have a very cool secret ingredient that we have implemented to be able to get a lot more access. Okay. And what happened is, we were scrambling as investors and kicking and clawing and scratching at these other places and trying to get this information. And they of course didn't want to give it to us because we're money grubbing investors, but what I did notice was there was another group that actually did get access to all sorts of information, and the things that we were scratching and clawing to get, they were getting on a silver platter. And those were nonprofits. Yep. Did you catch that?
I remember you mentioning that before.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and seven-figure flippers, you mentioned that.
Oh, I'll tell you what, that has been an absolute gold mine to us. I may even share in this call at some point a couple of letters that I've written working with, and that's the magic word. If you don't have a nonprofit that you personally have, you can absolutely work with just about any nonprofit that you want to, a church, a Habitat for Humanity. I work with one that my associate, a partner of mine, who actually has retired and gone into full-time faith-based nonprofit. And the magic word is with. I work with the nonprofit, not for.
I understand.
And I learned that trick. We were talking about this yesterday, how life prepares you for life. One of the questions I know we got was how to get over your first cold call jitters. Well, I got thrown into the deep end because before I got into real estate, I actually worked for the Fraternal Order of Police.
Okay.
And we were those guys that would interrupt your family dinner meeting, and ask you if you want to buy one of those stickers for the back of your car. And if you had one of those stickers, you could run every green light in town.
Right.
But I learned that, of course, I didn't work for the Fraternal Order of Police. They informed me that the magic word is I work with.
Yes.
Not a police officer. We worked for a call center. So I work with. So I work with North American Youth Foundation. They're a nonprofit that works with at-risk youth and their families, providing low-income housing and assistance to keep them off the streets and so on and so forth. They're also even getting involved into veteran housing and such. And then I switched to we. We work with various municipalities dealing with their blighted properties, and that's where we get a lot of this housing to be able to provide for North American Youth Foundation.
There we go.
See, now you see where I'm going with this?
Yep.
By working with the nonprofit, it absolutely is, it opens the door many times to get information that they would not normally give.
Okay. I've been thinking of doing some tithing to a veteran association, et cetera. And there is some here that kind of like a Habitat for Humanity for veterans. So that would sort of fall right in.
Exactly.
Yeah, right in line with what you're saying. Yeah.
I should have clarified. Yes, I actually do work with them. You can't lie about that. Okay, I'll
Right, right.
right off the bat tell you. I work with them. I don't work for them. I'm not specifically affiliated, but out of every deal that I utilize them for, I do donate to their nonprofit. And so they give me permission to say that.
I see. Okay, that makes sense.
And
So yeah, I could do a donation of what I wanted to do for this year, and then I could say, hey, going forward, I'd like to partner on some deals if we can work out a way to generate more leads from these lists, cold or start water cut or whatever it is, and yeah, see what they say.
I know of a couple of hedge funds that, and this is probably, now that I think about it, where I got the idea from, and I've incorporated into things like getting information from public resources and stuff like that. But I know several hedge funds that actually partnered, and by partnering, we're talking about 95-5 split, 90-10 split,
Okay.
going to the nonprofit. But by getting access and being able to have partnership with the nonprofit, they would get first look on HUD and FHA, VA, and Fannie Mae,
Wow.
different things like that. And so that can be, I think there's a lion on there. Someone's snoring already. But
This is great info, man. You guys get ready. Dave Day's, he's the man.
yeah, this has been great hanging out. We're here for a couple of days, and just, I mean, I thought I was a badass doing $100,000 deals. What the knowledge that Dave has, understanding stuff, he's got a lot of 100,000 plus deals, is just amazing. So you're gonna get some good information, really good information. And one of the questions I want to add something to was about the making your first call. I think that was one of the questions.
that was one of the questions we knew that was coming in.
So
Did you see my questions, Carl?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
Great.
I sent it late, but I'm trying because I'm working.
Right. Can you resend them again? Here?
Yeah, we want to get as many questions in as we can, so please send them back in and let's do them.
So
Hey,
the first,
Karl,
Where do you want me to send it, Stas?
just on the Zoom chat.
Chat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Before
Alright.
before you answer the question, should we share this thing on Facebook or no?
yeah, share
Yeah,
with Facebook.
please.
Yep, share with Facebook.
You guys can talk.
Oh, we can talk. Okay.
Oh. We were waiting on you.
Well, one of the first questions is, can't even see it. Anyways, was it about cold calls, making your first lead and getting over that, being scared? What would you say the first thing? And I got something to chime in too.
Sure. Well, again, like I said, life prepared me for life. And one of my first jobs, or one of my last jobs actually, was working for the Fraternal Order of Police. And as I'd mentioned, we were those guys that would call. I don't know if this was before or after, so that's why I'm saying the joke again. But we were the ones that would interrupt you at your dinner and would tell you that if you bought one of those decals for your car, you could run every green light in town. But we, after doing 300 calls a night, doing that, you kind of get over your jitters. And I didn't know, but that was preparing me over the next years for what I do in my real estate business. In fact, all of our calls, all of our deals come from outbound calls. Where we generate our leads from public records. I have yet to do a mail campaign for houses. I have yet to do a crazy, any outbound marketing for internal calls and stuff like that from for any actual length of time. We've done maybe one website and Facebook thing, and that was just because we wanted to try it. And I'll be honest, we got one deal out of it, and it wasn't worth it, so we dropped it. And we're back to our normal stuff, which is we build our leads, we generate our leads, and you guys have been a part of it today, where you got to see some of the stuff we did. We've spent a good 5-6 hours throughout today just going over stuff and sharpening each other. But everything that we do is outbound calls, and you guys actually got to see me make a couple of them, so you know that I actually do what I say I do. And when it comes to this, the truth of the matter is, to get over your jitters, you just have to realize, number one, you're the one providing value. You're the one that is actually offering to help. It goes back to something I've talked about every single time we've done these sort of things. What is a real estate investor? A real estate investor is not someone who buys houses. That's a mistake to actually think that's what a real estate investor is. A real estate investor is a professional problem solver. That's what a real estate investor is. And when you realize that, you're the one that's giving value. You're finding people with problems and you're solving them. And that's not sales. That's not, in fact, if you're in the sales business, you're doing it wrong. You're in the problem solving business. And so your job, the best sales tool, quote unquote, is your ears. Listen to what they have to say. Sure, you do have to get past the first hurdle, which is to find out, to introduce yourself. And again, from that job, I learned I have less than 30 seconds to get their attention, or else they're going to hang up, because I am a telemarketer in that particular situation. Here, I'm a helper, and I'm actually calling to help you. We were calling on tax deed foreclosure leads today, and they're going to go to sale by the end of this month. And so when I called, now there are little tweaks and tips and tricks you can do to make yourself more relatable. For example, if it's a regular homeowner, I come across as a neighbor, someone that is in the area. I'm not coming off as a investor. And the last thing you want to do right off the bat is to tell them you want to buy their house. Maybe they don't want to sell the house. Maybe they don't realize they need to sell the house. Your job is to figure out how to solve their problem. And if you get the house out of it, that's just a benefit. You will make a profit, trust me, on if you get in the problem solving business. But that's really the way that you can resolve yourself regarding these jitters. What you're afraid of is rejection. That's what the jitter is. You're afraid they're gonna say screw you and chase you off. No, if you realize before you make that first call, hey, I'm looking to help solve their problems. I'm going to solve somebody's problems today. Now you're not on a sales call. You're on a mission.
I think that's great. And one of the things I would add that helps me is what I'll do is I'll get all my leads and put them in a call thing. And I have someone who sits next to me and holds my hand. Okay, I get Maria over here to.
I was going to say it wasn't me. Here's both of my hands right here.
I know it sounds funny, but when Maria or somebody sits right next to me and say, "Okay, Karl," and I tell them, so "You're going to make me make these calls," and I just sit down, and then when I start to get up because of ADD, she goes, "Sit." I'm not kidding. And it's just like, and for the hour, I stay on there and help the stuff in. So I think having an accountability partner
that is a good
makes a huge difference. Somebody that You just get all your leads ready, and you tell this person, whoever it is, it could be like Shay, it could be your daughter. Where's Shay? Okay, have your daughter your accountability. She's what, 13? But anyways, the point is, for me, that's what gets me on the calls, and that's what gets me making the calls is when I have that accountability partner.
I will definitely agree with you. It does not hurt at all to have a second party there. There is a corporate influence when you've got someone there with you going after deals or going ahead and making calls and different things like that. Having someone else absolutely is a really good tool to keep you motivated.
Hey, DeMarcus, ask you a question, man. You had a question. Just,
What's up, everybody? Stas, why are you the host, man? Who are you? You just moved up in the world, I see.
That's awesome.
What's going on, everybody? How you doing, Dave?
How you doing, DeMarcus? How you doing, brother?
I'm all right.
Long time no speak.
Huh?
Long time no speak.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I wanted to know, do you deal with lots like Uncle Karl do?
Say that again.
Do you deal with the vacant lots like Uncle Karl?
Sure. We've done quite a few lots. We've done just about every major type.
How do you come up? I've had different people with different formulas or whatever, but how do you come up with the price that you're going to sell the lot for? We know what you got it under contract for the owner, but say you have a developer, and you always see the assessed value is very low. How do you determine the value of that lot to sell it for your price you're asking for? How do you come up with that asking price?
Sure. That's a great question. What I normally do, in fact, we talked about it a little bit yesterday over dinner. What we do in figuring out, and I'm assuming you're talking about a wholesale or a investor to investor pricing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So it's very similar to regular valuation. Do you know how people evaluate or an appraiser evaluates? And I'm going to very simplify it. It's the down and dirty valuation method for property. As far as we'll use square footage for a house, but we'll apply it in just a minute to lots. But most people, the appraiser takes the comps and they want to make it as like property as possible. So within the same age bracket, the same neighborhoods, the same similar square footage, so on and so forth. But they'll take the sales, let's say there's 5 sales or 10 sales in that time frame in that neighborhood. They will figure out what the average price per square foot is, and they'll apply that average price per square foot to the house you have. And then, of course, they figure out to make sure how close it is to that. Well, the same thing applies. Now, what we do to get the investor pricing is we take out all the regular home buyer sales and we look up the corporations, the investor purchases, the corporations, the trusts, and the obvious investors. Obvious investors are the ones with multiple properties in the same area with a different mailing address than the physical address, but in the same city still, not say from up north where this property is down south and stuff like that, but same city, same county owner. And you take those purchases because you assume they bought them at investor pricing, and you figure the same strategy. You get your price per square foot average, and then you apply it to the square footage that you have here. So you do the same thing with the lots, except of course you're not doing housing and such. You look for the previous sales of lots in like neighborhoods and see what one of the things, and it's a great idea to do anyways, is to go into your public records. Don't go to your cash buyer list. Cash buyer lists are okay, but you miss probably 75% of your buyers because, you know, the cash buyer list is supposed to be there for, you know, supposedly for investors. But how many investors do you know that don't pay cash? They use hard money. You miss 75% of your buyers by just going for the cash buyer list. Instead, go for a name list with LLCs, trusts, and obvious investors. Okay? So you look for the lot sales in like neighborhoods by corporations, investors, and so on and so forth.
I guess a lot of people don't like to, I mean, well, not don't like, but, you know, they hear LLC or corporation and they automatically assume they can't skip trace or find someone, you know, to talk to.
We were just talking about the LLCs and Incs. Those are the easiest to skip trace. Ooh, gosh, we're getting a little background.
No, that was me. That's my stove. I'm sorry. I'm about to start cooking. I'm sorry.
Somebody set a fire in there. No, actually, believe it or not, the corporations and LLCs are the most easy to find. They're much easier to find than skip tracing owners of abandoned properties.
So y'all have it. Y'all have it where you can look at the Secretary of State and y'all say, do we have it in Nebraska where we can just call the Secretary?
And there's a magic tool that most people don't even think about called Google.
Yeah.
You type in the owner's name from the Secretary of State, chances are, because they're an entrepreneur, i.e. they're a business owner, they're easier to find on Google. I promise you.
And real quick, in North Carolina, all you do is type in, go to Secretary of State, type in the address, it pulls it up, and you hit, or type in the corporation name, pulls it up, you hit view filings, and then it'll show you the filing and it'll have the person's phone number.
Many times.
Typically, it's 1 minute from the time you pull up the ownership of corporation to I have their phone number. It's that simple. And another thing I would add too, for us, for the lots, we have like 2 or 3 different realtors that we rely on. So I'll find a lot that I'm looking at, and I use Edwin with 5 points, and you can get your own realtor. So I'll say, Edwin, what should I pay for this lot? And do you have somebody who can sell it? And I've got 2 or 3 realtors. They'll give me a basic price, so I know I need to be underneath that. And they'll say, Karl, I've got a buyer for that, or I've got several buyers, or you need to be there. So I'm stupid as hell. All I do is ask Edwin, what should I buy this for, and what can I sell it for? And you got a buyer, and that's how I sell the lots. That simple.
Yeah, that's true. That's very good.
And we also use the property lookup system to find out who's buying the lots in the area. But so that's how I do it. It's a real simple way. A lot of times I'll pay Edwin 3%, you know, but I'm maxing. I'm selling at full market value. So that's how you can do lots and be totally stupid.
Karl, are you selling the lots at full market value to investors?
Yes, the builders are begging for lots. They are begging for them. I'm going to show you 2 quick things we did the other day. We just pulled up. There's one area that we're searching Charlotte. We pulled up the lady's name. We called her, said, "You want to sell the lot?" She said, "Yes." We put it under contract for 12. There's a guy building a house right next door. We went next door and said, "Hey, do you want to buy this lot?" He said, "Oh, yes." "How much you buy it for?" And he, 20. Okay. We're going to make a quick $8,000. That's a simple way to do it, you know? And so selling the lots is easy in areas. It's just finding them. A lot of times we do a lot of tax delinquents. You have to skip search the heirs to do them, but don't worry about selling them. I would use a realtor, and then, like I said, it's just real simple to find the buyers for the lots.
Karl, I have a question though.
Go ahead. I'm done, guys. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I have a question with regards to the lots. Is there a way to pull a big list of vacant lots in the area? Like we pulled a list of like absentee owners, things of that sort. So I'm thinking if I can actually pull a big list of vacant lots where the owner is absentee, is not living there, so they probably don't know much about that lot, and maybe they're so I was just thinking if there is a way to do that, that we can target a big list.
Absolutely. Here's the cool thing, and the guys have figured it out, I guess, finally. I like public records. If you go to your property appraiser, your local property appraiser, and just ask them for a list, believe it or not, and this doesn't have to go from a list source or anything like that. You just go to your property appraiser, ask them for a list of all the vacant lots. They'll send it to you in Excel or whatever format. Many times you can actually download it straight off of their site. It may be there, it may not, but call them. You absolutely can get that list, organize it from distance from the property, and you will absolutely have your list.
And it's easy. What we did just recently, we called our things called Polaris Mecklenburg County Lookup. We called the city that runs it, said, how do we do this? And the guy that runs the Mecklenburg County thing called us up and he walked it through us, and we were able to download it, and he showed us how to search for stuff. So reach out to the people that are running the county websites. But I'm telling you, we're going to make, from the time I started this 2.5 or 3 years ago, and the stuff we sold plus the stuff we have in the pipeline, we're going to net over $1 million on land. So I think land should be in, whether it's like we do a lot, I've talked a lot about the way we subdivide land. We do variances. Like we did one variance, we made 80,000. Another variance, we're getting ready to make 130,000. We have one property bought with a house and extra lot. We subdivided the lot off. We can get an extra 80,000. So if you learn the nuances of land, and I can go more into that, not now, but some other time, you can do nothing but land and make a shit ton of money.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You got it.
Hey, Karl.
Yeah.
I know you've covered this before, but is it possible for you to just give like a quick 30-second definition of a variance?
A variance is taking a piece of property that's too small and then going from the city, and they allow you to build on it. That's the basic quick thing. There's other types of variances where they'll allow you to subdivide where they wouldn't normally, but mainly a variance is finding properties a little bit too small to build in. We hire a variance attorney, David Murray. He does his magic. We write the checks out. That's all we do. That simple.
Hey, Karl.
Yeah.
Just real quick for Grace's question. Karl said it could be a whole bunch of other stuff too. There's a whole bunch of stuff that turns people off that they think they can't get done, but a variance will take care of it. It could be things like a swim buffer or runoff buffer or tree preservation, or all kinds of weird stuff that you can get the county to kind of link up with you out at the property, tell you what variance you need. And those are way, way, way easier to get than changing zoning. So it doesn't just have to be buildable area, although it usually comes back to that. But it could be all kinds of stuff that is tied to that lot that a simple variance could take care of.
So quick question to jump into that. So when you're doing that, do you have it under contract while you're figuring that out, or?
If we're getting it for cheap enough, we'll go ahead and put it under contract, or a lot of times we'll just buy it because we know that we can typically sell the land to the next door neighbor.
You already know that you have it sold, basically.
Well, yeah, we know that we probably sell one of the next door neighbors, or buy a piece from next door neighbors. When we're pretty sure, because we bring it to the attorney and he'll pretty much tell us, yeah, this is a good candidate, this is not, and we're not paying a lot for, like the one we got for free, the one we paid $23,000 that we're making selling for $160. So there's not a huge risk typically, but I think you can put them under contract and have a long closing date contingent on the variance being approved. That would be one way if you want to really protect yourself, you could do it.
Or Matt, you could do it the way I do it, which is I found out about a month after I bought it to build a house and freaked out and called somebody to come help me. So sure, it's better to do it in advance, but the world's not going to end.
Got it.
Got another question too. So, how do you approach a lead where you know that the owner of the property is deceased? So I think what they mean is that how do you approach? So I guess I guess that's an heir, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to it? Like somebody's passed away and they're one of the heirs. How do you usually approach them, talk to them so you get them to get the deal?
It really does depend on how long. So there are a lot of different ways to deal with heir properties. Our specialty is abandoned properties. However, I know the question probably has to do a lot with probate properties as well. So the thing is, if you see a probate in place, a lot of people are really nervous about addressing that because they're thinking, oh, this has to do with a death, this has to do with a situation, and I'm going to come off like a vulture or whatever. Here's the thing. If they're in the probate process, they've already gone through the mourning, they've already gone through the stuff that that had to do with the mourning process. And so if they're doing the probate and they've started the process or whatnot, they're ready to get down to business. That's just a fact. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. If it's an abandoned property, you look at when, and it's very simple. You can look up Google. You can look up on a site called legacy.com. You can go, anyone who doesn't have a membership to a site like ancestry.com and wants to do abandoned properties, get yourself a membership.
And yeah, so a lot of it is just building out the family trees, and Maria's right here. What do you say when you call up the people, Maria? You're live on Facebook. What do you say?
What do I say when I call people that I say,
There's.
I say, are you the daughter of Mr. Smith?
Talk louder.
I say, are you the daughter of Mr. Smith? I say, does this turn upside down?
Yeah, that's fine.
It does, okay.
Okay.
And they say yes or no.
No, apparently you can't.
Yeah, I guess not. And they say yes or no, and then I go on with the conversation from there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't put any science behind it. The most thing is, I mean, you really want to be, you want to be a human being, right? Like you don't want to sit there and be like, hey, you got property, I want it. You know, you got to be like, sorry about your loss. You know.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then you say a little bit more, and then usually I read the obit and I say, I see from public record that she was a librarian, or that, you know, it looked like she really made an impact in the community. You know, I honor the life that paid for that house. I mean, whoever it was, and I honor the history of the family.
That's really good.
Especially, oftentimes I'll look at a couple different obituaries to see, because usually, you know, married people will die one after the other, and so so I read both obituaries or a child that died before, so I really have a sense of the family history. And then I can speak to and honor the family history.
That's very good. That is very good. Again, there's usually more than one problem going on. If you're, for example, if it's an abandoned property, like the stuff that that Uncle Karl and I go through, and so you're addressing more than just the death. In fact, I don't make a point to address the death. I make a point to address the additional pain points. And for example, if it's tax delinquent, you know, I'll go ahead and I'll say, you know, that I noticed that the property was maybe going up for tax deed or something along those lines, and let them tell me that the person passed away. And of course I will offer my condolences and go from there. But I don't necessarily want to say, and it just would be bad form anyways, hi, I see your mom died. So, you know, you don't want to do that. You want to, like Maria said, you want to be a human being. You want to have respect. But I usually try and address the other issue first, because there's usually more than one when it comes to something like this. It's in foreclosure. It's in tax default. There's code enforcement involved. There's, what's that? The squatter could be there, stuff like that. So you'll address that and let them tell you the additional information.
And there's another question I think is a good one. If you were to become penniless or basically broke and had to start over again, if you were, what would you go after? What would you pursue?
I would go after Uncle Karl and ask for a loan. No. Honestly, that's a really good question. And the cool thing is now I have the knowledge, and that's so much more important than the money. The money is the lowest form of wealth, actually. The knowledge and the experience is there. I could start over and over if I needed to. The first thing I would do is I would go to my county and I would get, for example, a database of tax delinquent properties, or I would get a database from the county of code enforcement property, or I would go to the property appraiser and get a list of all the multifamilies in that county. I would go to the county and I would use the experience I have to find people with problems. And then I would go back to solving them. And I'd have a deal within the next few days. I mean, we just were pulling on a list today, and the first call we made is going to turn into a deal.
First call. And that was, we're going to tell you, that was a tax deed. What was it, tax?
It's a tax deed sale lead. It's a property that is going up for tax deeds here in Florida, by the way.
Yeah, we just pulled it up and made the call. And do you want to talk a little bit about this is something really cool about these zombie mortgages that you were telling me about, that's, for lack of better words, really badass.
Fair enough. Sure. So the zombie foreclosures, I wish I could come up and say that it was my name, that I named it, but unfortunately, no, it was Realty Track that coined the phrase zombie foreclosure. And their version of a zombie foreclosure is any property that's been abandoned by the owner. Now, I take it 2 steps further, because there was, as a result, and I will tell you that it's starting to wind down, even though we saw in the first, just the first couple of pages of leads that we went through over half a dozen zombies that are going to tax deed. But, and that was just from one sale. So they're still there. And what it is for us, not just abandoned by the owner, but we actually determine if the property has been abandoned by the owner and been abandoned by the bank as well. Absolutely. If the property has been abandoned by the owner, but also has been abandoned by the bank, we call that a true zombie. You see, back between 03 and 08, there was a lot of fraud going on. We were talking about this, before 03, most banks kept the loans in-house. And so the loan officer was also the servicer many times. And if they didn't do a good job on making the loan, they were stuck with the consequences. Around 2003, the banks realized they could sell their loans on Wall Street. And so it stopped being about making good loans and now about volume. And like I always say, a guy working at McDonald's can live in a $500,000 house. There's nothing shady about that, right? So as a result, when the bubble finally burst, there were literally hundreds of thousands of houses where the banks determined they had too much liability to actually take possession of these properties. And many people don't realize this. It wasn't the mortgages themselves that put a lot of these banks out of business. It was the FDIC. what happened is the rules that the FDIC put in there, for example, there's a rule that if the bank, because they made a bad loan, has to take back a property, for every property, the value of the property that they take back, they have to hold back 3 times as much in escrow that they cannot lend out. And okay, 2019, we're at the height of this market. If they take back a foreclosure, they'll sell it pretty quickly. So it's not that big a deal. Go back to 2011, 2009, 10, 11, 12, and 13, where there were literally hundreds of thousands of property, thousands upon thousands of properties that were just sitting in their REO division. And you figure you have to hold back 3 times as much for each of those houses. They made a quality decision themselves that I would rather write off the $100,000 property than have to hold back 300. And so they would leave and literally write off the mortgage, walk away from the property. Most of the time they would leave the mortgage in place, but they just walk away from it, not pay the taxes, not pay the insurance, and just let it go and write it off. And that's where we get zombie foreclosures from. And so we determined that there was, if we could start by finding the abandoned properties, many times we would see that these zombie mortgages were in place. And many times it doesn't matter if the mortgage is there, as long as you want to, there's 2 ways to look at it. When it comes to real estate, you can look at it as, I need to have clear title so I can resell it, and that's fine. Or you can say, I need access to the property more than I need clear title. And that's what we did. And as a result, for example, in Florida, we're a deed and mortgage state. The mortgage is just a lien. The deed is still in the owner's name. And we would find these owners and we would talk to them about, because these are abandoned houses, they left them. They thought they were already foreclosed. And actually, it was still in their name, collecting liens, potential lawsuits from someone who would be a slip and fall victim, or if squatters got in and hurt themselves or whatever. And so we were able to show them that it was in their best interest to get that out of their name. Even the bank didn't want it in their name. So why would you? And we would buy these houses for $500, $1,000, and turn around and rent them out without even fixing the title. Or there is the option on some of them to do quiet titles, because they have legitimately been abandoned by the banks.
What determines that? Is there a period of time or lack of payments, or what makes it?
One of the key elements to know it's a true zombie and they've been abandoned is when they stop paying the taxes. Okay. Because if they're paying the taxes, there's also another type, which is a cross between the two, which we call a partial zombie. That's where the bank did stop a foreclosure or is just put the property in stasis, but is still paying the insurance and paying the taxes. I showed you a house that we picked up, a 4-bedroom, 3-bath pool home in Lakeland, Florida.
It's beautiful.
$300,000 house all day long. And we bought it for $7,000. We moved in and lived there for 2 years. And right now we're renting it for $1,000 a month to a family friend. And believe me, they're getting family friend discount price on it. But, with that one, the bank continued to pay the taxes and continued to pay the insurance and maintain the exterior of the property. And so we know sooner or later they'll come back. So with a partial zombie, what we're doing in that situation is just watching our expenses. Because even though it is a property that we know they'll come back on, doggone, we paid $7,000. We did a little bit of fix up. We lived in it for 2 years. Our regular mortgage was $2,000 a month. So we made $48,000 by not having to make a payment. And then we're now collecting over a year in at $1,000 a month. So I'd say we got our money's worth, right?
And that's a great deal. But that's a partial zombie. Now, what you consider the full zombie, that's where the bank is never going to foreclose, correct? That's the ones where
that's a true zombie.
True zombie.
That's where they stopped paying the taxes, and you know that they have walked away. Many times you'll see code enforcement liens against those types of property and delinquent taxes.
And have you ever seen someone you thought was a true zombie and then the bank tried to do some action?
On the true zombies, if it got to the point, now I have seen where maybe they let it slip 1 year, maybe 2 years, but if it's gotten to the point where there is a tax deed applied for, I've been doing zombies for about 5 years now. I have yet to see one of them come back.
Wow.
And I've done hundreds.
That's a cool little niche. Remember, the riches are in the niches, bitches.
So just real quick to clarify, is there a way to ultimately get either a general warranty deed or a specialty warranty deed so you could sell the house free and clear with no liens?
Yes and no. Okay, there's okay. Number one, if you want to, there's always a way. Quiet title options are there. You can absolutely do a quiet title on the property, and we have successfully done quiet titles. We bought a home for $1,000. In that case, in that situation, the bank was Argent Mortgage. Argent was a bank that was during the boom, and they actually went out of business. And we tracked down the principals and served them, and we ended up getting that property free and clear and being able to sell it. You can do that. Now on the partial zombies, if they're paying the taxes, you don't want to try. You don't even want to try. Just cover your expenses and cash flow the bugger. But if it's a true zombie, I do it on a case-by-case basis because, again, I want cash flow. So, I mean, my rule of thumb, my personal rule of thumb is I'll spend up to $15,000 purchasing it and rehabbing it for a minimum of an $800 a month payment. You know what? You can't go wrong. And we've got properties we've done that with for over 5 years. You know, I in many cases I would sell a bunch of free and clear properties just so I could buy more zombies. You know, but if you do want to clear it, there are 3 ways to do them. One is a quiet title, like we were talking about. 2 is many, and we were talking about this earlier today, all states have something called a statute of limitations. And depending on how the state views them, you absolutely can enforce the statute of limitations. What a statute of limitations is basically nothing in the legal realm of business or criminal actually has no statute of limitations, meaning will not stop to be enforceable except for murder. Murder is the only thing out there in the legal field that has no statute of limitations. You will always be have the chance of being arrested for murder. So keep that in mind.
I have to worry about
keep that in mind.
Keep that in mind.
Okay.
That's why I'm in Florida right now, but that's another story.
That's why we don't give them any sharp objects. but as far as any other thing, and that's contracts, that's criminal, that's legal, in any aspect, anything other than murder has a statute of limitations. In other words, has a time limit for you to enforce it. So that applies to mortgages. For example, in Florida, there's a 5-year statute of limitations to mortgages after maturity. It used to be, or after balloon, okay? It used to be after default, but Florida has the best government that money can buy, and the banks have, worked out a system to make it very hard to enforce a defaulted mortgage as a statute of limitations. But a lot of the other states still do maintain from the last payment. Not every state, but a number of states will enforce the last payment as the default date, and whatever the statute of limitations are, if they haven't been foreclosed or they haven't started a case against them in that time frame, it can be rendered unenforceable. And then you could do a quiet title based on that. And the third thing is that many times, and I'll tell you, for example, Wells Fargo was a big one. They would release the mortgage themselves. I can tell you, just to give you an example, we bought 2 houses from an owner that were Wells Fargo properties, and they were true zombies. And we bought them for $1,500 a piece. And when we researched, we saw that Wells Fargo released the mortgages. And so we were able to sell them with free and clear titles.
Yeah, we had one too where we got the owner deed us. There's an open deed of trust. We didn't know how much the mortgage was for, and then we had the tax guy do the foreclosure on it. We called him up and said, "Hey, once you start the foreclosure on us behind on taxes." Well, he started the foreclosure, and then they just sent back and they satisfied the mortgage. We weren't even expecting. So that when the tax foreclosure starts, sometimes they'll just satisfy them like that.
Is Jeff Patterson on the call by any chance?
Scott Patterson?
Scott, yeah,
no,
I apologize.
He's probably at some Trump rally somewhere.
Oh.
So no, he's not on the call.
Scott is a guy up in North Carolina. We did a couple of houses up in North Carolina, and Uncle Karl knows him, and he always talks about, we sold him 2 properties for about $30,000, and he made a truckload of money, and he told Uncle Karl that we sold him the properties too cheap.
That's what he said, "God, I can't believe it. This guy's supposed to be really smart, but he sold us these properties for really cheap. I couldn't believe it."
What he didn't know was we paid $500 each.
So yeah. That's great. You passed along a good deal to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I hope if you do get a chance to watch this video that I redeemed myself. I didn't sell it to you too cheap.
Now I got another question. I think how do you get rid of IRS and credit card liens, liens in general against a property? Who can I contact, and how do I negotiate this?
Okay, that's a few questions. All right, ask the first one.
One at a time.
Oh, one at a time. Like an IRS lien and credit card, any of the liens against the property.
Separate questions.
That's fine.
Okay.
Uncle Karl doesn't know how to take direct.
No, I'm the big picture guy.
He's the big picture guy. That's right. No, so you absolutely can. You work with any lien of kind of the same way, and that is you get an authorization to release information. You get authorization from the seller to be able to speak on their behalf and gather information. Then you do go to the different people like the IRS, and there's usually a department that they will direct you to that has to do with lien releases and so on and so forth, and you negotiate. You show them why the value doesn't support the sale. Now, the best thing you can do is know your rules in regarding the houses for wherever you are. For example, here in Florida, we are a homestead state, and based on homestead, we have a rule, and this is why a lot of the hedge fund guys, this is why O.J. Simpson came to Florida and bought his house, because no creditor lien or judgment can attach to the primary homestead. The only thing that can actually attach to the primary residence is a mortgage, what you sign to attach, like a mortgage or a contractor lien, where you signed agreeing to work and attach it to your property unless you pay them. But even IRS doesn't attach to primary homestead unless they do something very specific and such. So many times you can work around those things. We actually just did a house, purchased a house last month, and it had a judgment, a certified judgment against the property, but it was her primary residence. And so we knew that. We didn't even worry about it. We purchased it, and the attorney who closed the deal forgot to include the affidavit of homestead. And when they recorded it, the lien attached to the property. So we contacted, and we followed the same things. You get the authorization to release information, and then you find the creditor, and you reach out to them, and you show them why they should take a discount or whatnot. In our case, because we knew that the property was a homesteaded property, even though it attached, we knew that we could do one of two things. We can either go back to the courts and file an action to have the judge ratify the homestead and get it done, but we knew that could take anywhere from 60, 90 to 120 days to get it done. And we had a buyer. Or we could go to the creditor and negotiate with them. And so what I did is I contacted the creditor, I spoke to him, and I said, look, we made a mistake, and as a result, the fact is, it still is, whether or not it attached, it still is the lady's primary residence, and we can have you removed. But because it will save us time, the money that we're going to give to the attorney in the court to get this lien removed, I'll just give it to you. So the $1,500 that I would pay an attorney to get this resolved, I'll give the $1,500 to you. They didn't even negotiate. They didn't try it. They sent they accepted that in writing, and they sent us a release. So the secret is just to go ahead and do it, but also know the rules.
Yeah. Let me add a couple things real quick, right? Like IRS liens are typically only good for 10 years.
That's another good thing.
And they fall off. Now, I've never seen them renewed. Dave, you said you've seen them.
I have.
Okay, so that can happen, but personally, I've never seen it. But I think it was because they called the IRS up or something.
Yes.
Okay.
If you see something that's really coming to the end, and Uncle Karl actually just talked about a cool little thing. Just because there's an IRS lien doesn't mean it necessarily attaches. For example, he was talking about this was a probate, I think it was, and the person had a house, had multiple properties in 2 different counties.
Yeah.
And the lien was recorded in one county, but it wasn't recorded in the other county. So he was able to close on the one in the other county, because unless it's actually recorded in the county that you need it to be in, it doesn't count. The other thing is, if you do see that the option is there, you actually look at the lien, and it will tell you when it falls off. The IRS lien will actually tell you when it falls off. If you see it's going to fall off in months to maybe a year, you may want to consider extending the sale and working say an owner finance, a lease option or something to be able to extend it past that time. And you'll save yourself thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars just by adjusting your sale. Now, if you really need to sell it quick, who knows? You could actually take the property with an exception on title, show it to your investor buyer, and say, look, this is going to fall off in 6 months while you're doing your rehab. You can buy it. I'll give you a little bit of a discount for that. And I've made it work that way as well. There's all sorts of ways. Remember, a contract is whatever two people can legally agree on.
And another thing about the liens and stuff too is a lot of times we'll negotiate discounts on the liens. Like if there's credit card debt, we'll negotiate that. And the other day we bought a lien. It was like I think it was like $13,000 or $15,000 lien from a private individual against a person. I just skip traced them, called them up, and I said, my company, Lions Finance, buys liens. I know this lien's been here 8 years, getting ready to expire, but we buy them. We'll give you $2,250. He's like, okay, what do I sign? Probably could have got it for cheaper. But you can, a lot of times you can buy these liens. You can let them, like if you're holding the property, we'll buy them with IRS liens, and then we'll just wait for the IRS liens to fall off. We'll wait to the 10 years. A little bit of risk. They could be renewed. We haven't found that. So I like to wait them out.
The only time I've seen them renewed is if someone brings it to their attention. We had one, like I said, I did see it happen, but it was the seller's fault because it had about 8 months to go on the thing, and they had not renewed. They had not done anything in the 9 and 4 month time frame. And they called the IRS and they're like, we want to see if we can negotiate this. Well, what are they going to do? They see it's about to fall off, and they renewed it. So if you see it's getting ready to come off, maybe leave well enough alone.
Grace, you had a question?
Yes, with respect to the liens, because I've been talking to Karl about something I'm working on right now.
Sure.
If the lien comes off, and this is in Texas, so
Yeah.
then the lien holder has the ability to come back and refile within 2 years.
Okay.
So the bottom line is the seller has 4 brothers. She has 3 quit claims, and the one that's refusing to sign the quit claim, he had 2 liens against him. One's off. The other one expires in April. So she doesn't want to pay for anything. She does not want to do a discount on the house. She wants whoever the closing attorney is to fix that, make it go away. The lien holders won't negotiate with her, but it does fall off. So what she wants to be able to do is she's willing to wait it out, like sign a contract now, wait until it expires, but then she wants to close like right after it drops off. But it won't necessarily be updated with the county records if she wants to close like within a couple of days after that happens. What would be your recommendation?
Okay, so going back to your thing, there's 2 different issues I was hearing. One is the liens, the other is the one family member that doesn't want to sign.
But she also has a power of attorney over him. She said
Okay.
full power of attorney. So I assume he has some kind of a medical issue for her to have that.
Okay, as long as you have the access to it, then I don't actually see a problem. As long as as long as you do make sure that it's recorded immediately after, because after, if they refile and the property's not in that person's name, it won't attach.
Okay.
So I'm not necessarily against it, but it does sound like they know it's coming up. So they may, you want to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, they've had the property is vacant and it's been on there coming up 10 years. So the company has made no efforts to foreclose or taken any action to force them to make this payment.
I do agree with her that you want to record that deed as soon as possible. As soon as that deed changes hands or whatnot. Or how long before?
It falls off in April.
It falls off in April.
Why not just escrow the $10,000, close it out, keep it till then, and then when it falls off, you're good to go. In other words, get it closed out. Tell her, look, there's 10. You're gonna get your final 10,000 escrow. You can get the rest of your money now, and you don't have to pay the freaking taxes on the property till then. Something like that. Is that?
That is actually a good idea. That could be a little easier for her to accept. There's still a risk that if it does record, you're going to be able to pay it off. But she knows that she's going to have to pay it if it was recorded, and she doesn't like that idea. But what Uncle Carl's saying right there, I like that.
I like that too, and I did present that option, but she's looking at it as it's not her debt, it's someone else's debt. And so any way you look at it, she refuses to be separated from that 10 grand.
Oh, sure.
Even temporarily.
Then you know what? You tell her she's a stupid.
No, don't do that.
No, but but it's like, look, you want to hold out, you want to be stubborn, or do you want your freaking money? But say it in a nicer way. I think there's a way
she could say it's not her debt, but you could say, well, but it is your asset.
Right. And an
You want your
asset
money
that
out
she's
of it.
been paying on for 10 years and no one's been living in the property.
Sure.
So
She's paid way more than that.
Oh, I'm sure.
She's emotionally invested.
She is emotionally. That's
the
exactly
problem.
right.
So you got to find a way to get her not emotionally invested.
Or
to pay the emotional.
The best way, I'm telling you, the best way to overcome an objection is to agree with them.
Yeah, that's a good
Okay,
idea.
I'm telling you, I've used it so many times. They say, I do not want to spend another dime on this property, and I want this. Hey, I understand. I agree with you. I want you to get every dime you can. Now, what I do need to do to help you is, you see what I just did there? Instead of pushing back, which that's not a good effect.
Yes.
If you push, they're going to push back. On the other hand, you just put yourself on her side, and now you can steer.
Okay.
And I think that's going to be the best approach. I've gotten people to absolutely work with me and agree with me by being agreeable.
I think
Okay.
that's a little better advice than mine.
Yeah, don't call her stupid, please.
No, I would never do that.
I know that.
I translate his language.
Yes, what Uncle Carl was actually meaning.
Was what Dave said.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
I absolutely was translating. I got the vibes.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
Tell me your team or your business platform, if you would, please.
Can you explain the question a little bit?
Is it solely you, or do you have some type of assistance on your background? Excuse me, on the backside.
Okay, sure.
Please.
All right. So for me, it's actually my brother and I for our internal business model. It's D&J Finance, and I'm the D and he's the J. And And so I'm the visionary. I'm the one that talks to people and so on and so forth. He actually cleans up my messes, probably is the best way to say it. Additionally, we've developed a unique model in that over the years, having done this and stuff, I've developed a lot of different strategies and added tools. So I have enjoyed taking the consultant approach. And so what we've done is we've created what we call territory managers that use my systems and use my approaches. And basically, for a very simple explanation, I do a partnership, an ongoing partnership with each of these territories where they do the legwork and do the research and the initial part. I provide the logistics. Sometimes most of the time, provide the money and the problem solving, and we split the profits 50-50. And we do that all across the state and a couple of other states as well.
And I think it's a great idea, and I'm surprised because we have a whole lot of staff, and people we joint venture with. I like the business model. We're actually going to be, we're be working with Dave on Jacksonville, Florida. I'm not supposed to say that. Maria's like rolling her eyes. We're going to be working with Dave and with Jacksonville, Florida, because the way he solved the problem. I thought I was a badass. Okay, I really did, and I still do. But Dave takes it to a whole nother level. The stuff that he can figure out.
You still are, Karl. I mean, it's one way. No matter how you put it, you still are, buddy.
Okay, absolutely. Badass, just minus the bad. No, I'm just kidding.
But so that's his model. I think it's great.
Can I ask you a stupid question, Dave?
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate that.
Hey, no problem. No problem at all. There's no stupid question.
When you say logistics, what do you mean? Are you talking like you provide lead, you provide if you need to come in and do negotiations, that type of thing? Or
absolutely, any of the above that's needed, we'll walk them through the first steps so that they get comfortable with the research and making calls and stuff like that. But in the end, we do hand off that part. But still, we look at every deal individually, and we research every deal, and we find the strategy for every deal. And as a result, I told Uncle Karl the story of how with one of our guys, he had a list of sellers about an inch thick, and he'd paid about $20,000 in Ron LeGrand courses and boot camps and stuff like that. And he had a buyer's list this thick and a seller's list this thick, and he still had never put anything together. And I said to him, look, we'll use your list, we'll work it, and we'll split the profits. And we took the first 18 sheets off of his list, and we figured a way how to buy all 18 that first month. And we didn't pick and choose. We didn't go 1, 5, 7. We didn't do any of that. We went through the top 18 and we bought all 18. And the reason I did that was I wanted to show him that any deal can be a good deal if you look at it the right way. Now, don't get me wrong. We've filtered through our leads here, and we're shooting more for bigger profits in what we're doing. But you can absolutely turn any deal into a good deal. And my job is to provide the logistics, the problem solving, and the right way to look at it to be able to problem solve and to help them to get to the yes and to the deal done.
See, I think that's real important too, because there's some people, and I understand this mentality. I was talking to somebody about, well, why don't you just joint venture with me on? He's like, no, I'm going to do it all myself. I said, what's 100% of zero? Zero. Well, this guy never got the deal. So it's sort of what this other guy that Dave was talking about, he had all these sheets on the stuff, but he didn't get one deal. As soon as he started working with Dave, Dave was the one that provided the know-how, the specialty knowledge to get it done. So whether you're partnered with people like Dave or me or other people, and we're still working on getting our systems, we're sort of screwed up a little bit. When you say that, Maria? Maria says a lot. Okay. But anyways, we're getting better at that. But the point is, I think that, whether it's me, Dave, or somebody else, partner with somebody who's really doing the knowledge, and they can take you to the next level. Another thing that Dave said was really important too was he's a visionary. His brother is the one that can do behind the scenes, keep it organized. And we talked about, it's like the book called Rocket Fuel. You put a visionary and an implementer together, and it's like 2 + 2 is 10. It's huge. So I think, that can help. Like if you're more a visionary, you need someone as an implementer to take you to the next level.
Absolutely.
And that's the way, I'm more the visionary, and I've got a lot of people that can implement. And we also have visionaries on our team too. And it's gone crazy. This year we're going to easily net 1.2, probably somewhere 1.2, 1.3 million, with our partners and stuff. So we're trying to catch up to Dave, but we're falling behind.
So here's a question for both of you guys. What is the lowest margin or the lowest spread that will get you excited to say, I want to work on this deal?
You go first.
We were just talking about this the other day, yesterday at dinner. I told him that, one of the deals we did last year, we bought the property for $30,000. We had all in, we had it for about $65,000, and we sold it for $268,000. And that didn't excite me. It was just another deal. I know, I see you looking at me there. It didn't, because this was the thing. The deals, even the big, large deals and stuff like that we're talking about, and I think this will end up being a segue.
Okay.
But I call them placemats. They're there to keep the bills paid. They're there to keep going. But what I'm always looking for, and this is what's going to excite me, when I see a deal that opened a door for me to make a duplicatable, replicatable system that'll turn into 100 deals. That is where it'll excite me. I'll give you an example. Like I said, this was the segue. We were doing a deal in Lakeland, Florida, where we found a triplex in this really crummy part of town, and we bought it for $10,000, and we sold it for $30,000. And so we made a $20,000 profit, and we were excited, yay, and such. And it was on this cul-de-sac, and this cul-de-sac was nothing but duplexes, triplexes. It was a really bad area of town. There was a lot of drugs going on and so on and so forth, but it was this one cul-de-sac, and I could just, without even driving to the end of it, I could see a lot of boarded windows. And these were all duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes. So I went ahead and I figured, since I made 20 grand on this one deal, I'm going to go ahead and see what other abandoned properties are on this cul-de-sac. And I did it virtually. I didn't drive down and pull up addresses. I just pulled up the property appraiser, pulled up the street, and just clicked on each parcel to see who owned it. And when I got to one of the duplexes, it was owned by a tax deed or a tax lien certificate buyer who had bought it at the tax deed foreclosure for $5,300. So and I'll go, if you want, I can go into detail another time, but for the story's sake, I saw that this was a certificate buyer who ended up with the property, and it was abandoned. It had just sat there for actually over 2 years. So I looked him up, I called him, and I said, hey, my name's David. I own property on this street. Notice I didn't say, I noticed you have this duplex, because I knew that the certificate buyers, they'll buy any tax lien. They may not even know what they have. So I didn't want to say this duplex, because then they might hear dollar signs. I said, I noticed you have this property on this street that I just sold my place on, and I was wondering if you wanted to sell it. They said, yeah, we want to sell it. How much you want to pay? I said, I think I'm shooting for the stars. And I say, would you take $5,000 for it? And they said, would you do $5,500? And I said, you know what? Let me talk to my business partner, and I'll get back to you. I didn't want to sound too excited. So I hung up and did my happy dance. Asked my brother, who's my partner, you want to do this, don't you? He said, sure. So I called him back. Before I did, I actually looked up that property owner's name, and I noticed they had other properties in that county, and they had another duplex on the same street. So I called him back, and I said, hey, yes, we can do that $5,500. I talked him into it. And I noticed you have another property on the same street. Can I just send you another $5,500 and we just take both deeds? He said, sure, go ahead. So we sent him the money, we got the deeds, and we actually sold the first one. It was in really rough shape. We sold it for $18,000 to the same guy who bought the triplex. So we're already in the green. I figured I might as well look at the house, at the duplex that we bought. So I drove down and I looked at the other one, and it was actually in good shape, and the AC was running. And I said, that's odd, but I went ahead and I knocked on the door, and someone came to the door, and I said, hey, and asked me who I was. I said, I just bought this place. He says, oh, thank God. I've been trying to figure out who to pay my rent to. He had actually been in the property when it went to tax deed and didn't know who to pay. I said, how much are you paying? He said, $550. I said, fine, you can pay me. And I ended up collecting $550 a month for the next month or two, and I ended up selling that one for $37,000. So that's all exciting, but the next thing was I called the company back, who was that lien provider, and I said, hey, what else you got? And they're like, oh, we got a few things. I said, well, if I go through all the public records and I find the others, can I actually make you some offers? He said, I'll do you one better. I'll just send you the list. So he sends me the list, and it's 189 properties. And so we put all 189 properties under contract. And what we did is we wrote the contract for the entire batch. Oh, I should also tell you, they sent me exactly how much they had into each property, and all they asked me for was what they had into it. So the average price between each of these properties was between $3,000 and $7,000. We went ahead and put a contract on all 189 properties with a clause in there. $10,000 deposit, which we actually didn't have to send. It stayed in escrow with our attorney. And we had a 90-day due diligence period where we could cherry pick each of the properties that we wanted by just sending them that portion that they had on the list. We then drove around all of Florida, looked at every single property, opened each one up, put a bandit sign in front of them, and started selling them one by one over the next year, we sold all 189 properties with an average of $10,000 to $20,000 profit. That was a nice payday and it was duplicatable. Actually ended up making over $1 million off of one lead source with a $10,000 deposit that we didn't actually have to pay out. So what excites me isn't actually one deal. It's when I can turn it into a replicatable, duplicatable system. That's what gets me excited. And I'll do it with $2,500 profit, as long as I know I can do it over and over and over again. That's what gets me excited.
Now, if I could follow up, Karl, just 1 second before you answer. If I can follow up with one question where you said you put all of them under one contract.
Yes.
Do you ever worry, because, some people have a difference of opinion, like if you put everything under one contract and then something happens with one, then you're not able to move forward, or there's a hiccup in the contract where you can't close on the rest of them?
Remember, I had that due diligence, that clause that allowed me to cherry pick.
Okay.
I built it in.
Okay.
Yes, I had thought of that, and I put it into the contract to cover my butt.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And for us, we're doing a deal, a real easy deal. We're making $8,000. I don't typically like to be around $20,000, but it also depends on how hard the deal is and the circumstances. This one deal we're doing for $8,000 is, so we pulled up a bunch of vacant land. Erica, one of our first deals, she's our door knocker, but we're promoting her to acquisitions. But she called, worked out the deal, noticed that the guy was building a house next door, went and talked to him. We're under contract for 12, we're selling for 20, we make 8,000. So if it's an easy deal, I'll do those. It's also, to help people out that are working with us get going, get started. That's one thing. So it's easy. And then I like to and sometimes we'll do stuff just to try stuff. Like we did one with Brandon the other day. Hey, Brandon, come over and say, hey, this is, he's actually,
I don't see him.
You don't see him? Come over here.
Hello.
So
oh, there you are.
So we did this one deal.
The guy in the background.
Where it's like there was a first mortgage, a second mortgage. There was some taxes and liens. And so sometimes we'll try. So we end up just investing $2,500. Let's just see what we can do. Well, we bought the second mortgage from Private Angel for $800. It was a $9,000 one. And Brandon did a great deal doing his own short sale and got it down to $30,000 on the first. And so we end up, we're going to make what, 35 supposed to next week, 35 or maybe 40,000 on it. But it's sometimes we'll do a deal just to try it to see if it works. And to learn like Dave does. I want to see how to do this thing. So let's try it. So that was one that we had no idea if we're going to make money, but we think the same thing is duplicatable because the people hadn't paid on the mortgage for 8 years. So it falls in that zombie category. So I guess I'm trying to say is sometimes we'll do things just to learn. Or it's real easy. We'll do a small one, or I guess it just depends on the different circumstance, how I'm feeling that day and how much I had to drink the night before, and stuff like that.
After the first beer.
Hey, Nick Fulmer asked a question. Any other way to find abandoned zombie properties besides trying for dollars?
Yes, a lot of different ways. Again, public records to the rescue. You want to figure out, we talked about, I'm freezing my butt off here. You saw me shivering. We on the last call, we talked about the 4 Ds. Why would someone abandon a perfectly good property? And we decided it was death, divorce, disaster, and detention. So death, of course, we understand that one. Divorce is one that can absolutely have someone thinking only on an emotional level, and they'll abandon a property rather then let the other one have it or whatever. Disaster could be financial or physical. Stuff that's going on in Panama City right now absolutely counts as a physical disaster. Financial is foreclosure, bankruptcy, different things, loss of job, different things like that. Detention is jail. Believe it or not, there are some really, really good deals that can come from that. And all of those 4 Ds are a matter of public record. You can absolutely find those divorce records. You can find the death records. You can find the detention records. And usually the disasters will have to do with things that you'll notice like code enforcement liens and such. One of my favorite resources for finding abandoned properties, we started talking about code. There are 2 different types of code liens. There's the big scary ones that everybody knows about called administrative liens. That's where they send you the letter and then they put a lien on your property at $500 a day or whatever it is. But there's not really any teeth behind that. Well, there is, but there isn't, because the Code Enforcement Board is not trying to charge you $250 million. They just want you to fix the problem. And many times, if you will, or the new owner steps in and is going to solve their problem, they'll get it reduced down to very, very manageable numbers. I've had a code enforcement lien reduced from $300,000 down to $1,000, from $100,000 down to $500. I've had, the biggest one I did was $1.6 million down to $42,000, and that $42,000 was actually broken up over 24 units, so it was really $2,000 per unit. So there's the administrative one. The other one, which is an absolute gold mine for finding abandoned properties.
Hold on one second.
Oh,
just before he goes into this, for everybody on Facebook, join Uncle Karl and Friends Mastermind group. We don't usually do it on Facebook, but this is the kind of value that we bring. It's $105 a month for Zoom meeting, Facebook, and you get people like Dave giving away this great golden nugget here. So pony up and pay me some money. Go ahead.
Fair enough, and it is a deal at twice the price. Now I've heard the value that Uncle Karl gives, and it is absolutely worth the money. You guys know how often I actually make an appearance, and that's not often at all. I've only done 2 this year, and they were both for Uncle Karl. So no, sorry, 3. 1 for Jason, and 2 for Uncle Karl. So I definitely will tell you that he gives value. The second type of code enforcement lien, which is an absolute gold mine to finding abandoned properties, is something called abatement liens. The abatement liens is not one where they tack on millions of dollars and per day fines. It's where they actually do the work, abate the problem, and then charge you for it. So this is where they mow your grass, they board up your windows, they cover your pool, the different things like that, where they will go ahead and actually do the work, and they're going to lien your property $500, $1,000, $2,000, all the way up to demolishing the house, and they'll charge for that. Now, the idea behind why that abatement lien is so valuable is, let's say that you got a letter from the city saying if your grass is 12 inches high, if you don't mow it by the next 30 days, we're going to mow it for you. We're going to charge you, $800, and we're going to lien your house. What are you going to do?
You should mow it.
Yeah, I'd mow it. I'd pay the neighbor kid
Yeah.
$50, whatever. I don't want to have the lien. So that's the fact that they let it go. And then after that, it's still several steps for the county to actually attach the lien. They have a hearing, they get an order, and so on and so forth. So if it's actually gotten to the point where they have attached an abatement lien to your house, I'd say 80% of the time, maybe even more, that house is abandoned. That has been an absolute gold mine for me finding those properties. And you can absolutely get that. I use the word absolutely a lot.
Yeah.
Absolutely get that from the Code Enforcement Board just for asking.
Maria's question.
Can you ever talk the city down? Like, I know this one property has really 10 years of abatement from on the line. Can you ever negotiate that down? Have you ever done it?
Yes and no. They tell you they will not negotiate those liens. And most of the time, especially for us investors, they will not. However, we have a secret recipe. I actually was talking to you, Alden, a little bit about it at the beginning, where I said that there are some extra bonuses for working with a nonprofit. I have absolutely, again, without burning, I have made, yeah, we're going to have a drinking game. I have gotten reductions on even abatement liens from municipalities because I worked hand in hand with a nonprofit to get it done. They will bend over backwards to work with a nonprofit. So if you can make an arrangement with a nonprofit in your area, your local church, Habitat for Humanity, even Salvation Army is a great resource, and you're not going to work for them. You're going to make an arrangement with whatever nonprofit that if you utilize their name, you will actually donate a portion of the profits to them, and by doing that, you're actually telling the truth that you are working with. In our case, we work with the North American Youth Foundation, but you're working with them. And by doing that, we have gotten some serious reductions.
I never knew that. That's great.
Yes.
I think I'll put that in this. That's a great.
That's worth $105 a month right there.
Yeah.
I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars with that.
Think about it.
I donate every week to Uncle Karl's goat farm.
The goats love you and they appreciate it.
They thank you for it.
Yeah, you provided hundreds of pounds of goat food, so we appreciate that.
It went into his bank account. I'm leaving.
Hey, there is a question from Darius.
Go ahead.
Darius said, I have one property that is good. He owes $7,000 in back taxes and nothing else. The guy's looking at serious prison time, but won't sign a contract. How do you handle that? He won't talk to me at all.
Next. No, okay, so the guy, so it has back taxes. Let me get that again real quick.
So it has $7,000 of back taxes.
Okay.
And he's looking at serious time for prison.
Okay.
But he doesn't want to speak to this guy.
Okay. You know what? Again, I'm not going to tell you you get every deal. There's not going to be 100% in this, but I'll give you a couple ideas. I go to family members.
Exactly.
I go to family members because what he may not want to address and discuss with you, if it's in the benefit of his family, it might work out that route. You know, there's even other other avenues to make money on a house than just buying? What about doing a master lease on the property and turning around and using it as a rental or as a Airbnb? What about going ahead and managing the property? What about being the lender on the property so that he can pay for his lawyer and so on and so forth? There's a lot of different avenues that you can solve his problems besides buying the house and also still make a profit. So, and again, one of Uncle Karl's ideas, which I'm very strongly adopting into my strategy, is partnering. Instead of just buying, partner with the owner. That might make it work, but to actually even get access, I would probably have to see if there's a family member that can get a benefit by talking to him for you.
Yeah, I like that. The family member, and one of like almost all our deals, it's being persistent and then pivoting. So if he won't talk to you, maybe mail him some letters, maybe send him some texts. And there's certain personalities like maybe he doesn't like guys or something. Maybe send a woman to talk to him. Be a little bit careful.
I like guys in a little bit.
Yeah, well, maybe, yeah. But I think it's persistence and pivoting and trying different things. Don't give up, because right now you're getting 0 deals, right? So zero, but right now it's dead. So why not keep finding different ways through the family member, sending a letter, sending a text. Just keep up with them, and you can maybe still buy it in prison. Maybe he'll get tired at one point and need some money in prison. So just keep being there, and then pivoting, thinking of different ways. Maybe send them a box of chocolates or something, right, Maria?
Yeah.
Now, no only means no for now.
Yeah.
So I would definitely go back to the back.
Dave, I have a question though. So I mean, I'm actually doing driving for dollars for a couple months, finding a lot of abandoned houses.
Good.
And, I also have like a VA who makes about 500 to 1,000 calls a day, so I generate a lot of leads. And so if I run into a situation of zombie mortgages or partial zombie, things of that sort, like how do I reach out to you? Like I like partnering up with people. Like there is a deal right now that I'm working on with Uncle Karl and Stas. And then Jeff was on the call the other day. He's specialized in subject to. So there is a complex subject to deal with low equities. So I'm working with Jeff on that. So if there is any deals, I would have to like partner up on your expertise on specific mortgages, things of that sort. How do I reach out to you?
Well, through Uncle Karl. Uncle Karl can definitely put you in touch with us, and we're going to be working this through him anyways.
Okay, good.
You can give out. Do you want to give your number, or do you want to go through me, or do you want to?
I think the ideal is to go through you on that, just to make sure that you're aware of the stuff.
Well, so just go through me, then we'll pass it off to Dave. We want, I want to create one of the things for this mastermind. I want to be a resource, like Jeff Richmond. He's great at bullshitting. So he's a perfect guy to do the have to negotiate. Okay. And I kid around a lot, but I want to have different resources like this so you can reach out to experts and partner with them, or maybe get a consulting fee. So go through me, and I'm actually going to get assistant in the next few days so that people can reach out to them. But we'll get you through to Dave so that you can, when you get a good deal like that, you can partner with Dave on it. We like to see you, because I don't really understand the zombies that well yet, and I think that it's an incredible, profit center and stuff. So you can reach out through me. I'll get it over to Dave.
Okay.
Sounds good.
What else we got?
Anybody got any last questions here?
Yeah. I had a question about, as far as how does it sound like when your first 30 seconds over the phone, and you were saying not to mention what the problem was. So how do you start that conversation, and then ease it into let me know what the main thing is.
Okay, no, that's a great question. One of the biggest mistakes I personally think on the call is in those first 30 seconds telling them that you want to buy. Instead, like I said, for me, I tell them if they're an individual, as in a property owner or a not a business owner, okay, a non-commercial owner. If they're an owner and just an individual, I come to them like a neighbor. So the elevator pitch would probably sound something like this. Hi, my name's David. I actually own property just down the road from you over on 123 ABC Street. I noticed the property that you own there is looking a little abandoned. I was wondering if you were planning on doing anything with it. Just that simple. Now, if you're a business owner or an investor, I come off as an investor. Hey, my name's David. I'm an investor here in town. I saw you own that property on 123 ABC Street. We buy properties just like that. I was wondering if you were interested in selling. Now, with an investor, most of the time, you know, if everything's for sale for the right price, so I don't mind throwing in the buy sell scenarios. You still could leave it with I was wondering what you're going to do, because if you're in problem solving mode, if you just say I want to buy your home, you've limited yourself to just that option. But if you ask them the questions, you've just opened the door to be able to go to that, to be able to solve whatever problem is necessary.
That's a good answer. Guys, any more questions?
Yeah, I have one in regards to the IRS with the liens on those. I spoke to Karl earlier today, but if you're trying to figure out exactly what's owed, assuming that you just want to pay it off, who exactly, you mentioned something about an authorization to release form, but is that the attorney that's getting it? Is it me as the person who's trying to buy it? And then from there, am I contacting the IRS, or is it the county, or what does that actually kind of look like?
Whoever the creditor is, whoever the judgment holder is, whoever it is on that particular situation, that's who you're going to be speaking to. I try and get to the decision makers in most of those situations. Obviously, with the IRS and with the people that that's going to have to go up the chain of command, and there's you just have to follow their rules. But in most cases, it's amazing. If you got nice people in the IRS too. It's true. There's nice people everywhere. And it's all in how you present yourself. Don't come off combative. Look to be solving their problems too. And if you come off as trying to help them, and if you come off as trying to work with them instead of against them, you're going to find a pretty easy approach there. But I personally want the authorization to release information to be for me and let's say the attorney. I want to have myself added to it, but I also want, say, the title company, the attorney, whoever it is that I'm working with, to be included on it. So that way, I'm not a bottleneck, and neither are they.
It's just a simple one-page thing. Stoss, he's going to put it on the website tomorrow. It's just a real quick form from them to fill out. They sign it, and then you can send it off to the different creditors to speak to them. And then what I would say with the negotiations for me, what I found is like that one lien I talked about earlier. I just researched it, and my company buys liens. And I noticed you have this lien on the property, and I'd be interested in purchasing. Or you might say, there's, you got to be careful sometimes, because if you alert them they have a lien against the property, it's not a good idea sometimes.
Again, depends on where it is in the process and stuff. It's 5 years down the road. You may just want to go ahead and do it and pay it off.
Yeah.
But you determine what the best strategy is based on, in my opinion, you always work towards two things. One, you work towards the exit, and two, you work towards ROI. The least amount of out-of-pocket money to the best return.
Okay.
If I see that lien will come off in a certain amount of time, and I can just pay a portion, a discounted rate, a subject to transaction, and leave that lien. So instead of, I'll give you an example. Let's say it's $100,000 purchase price with a $75,000 IRS lien that's coming off in a year. I might be willing to just give them the $25,000 and take the property subject to that lien and let it come off. And in doing so, I literally just saved myself $75,000 on the purchase, and that turned into a much better deal because I only have $25,000 into it. That can absolutely be. So you're going towards an exit and ROI. Those are the two factors you always want to have when figuring out a deal.
Great. So when they fall off after 10 years, does that reattach to that individual elsewhere, or it just completely disappears altogether?
It disappears unless they reinstate it. It's gone unless they reinstate it. The lien is gone at least.
And I think there's a couple companies that renew them. I've heard, I think someone said Discover Card might, or so, I'm not sure, but basically pretty much rule of thumb is after 10 years, very few people renew them, and they pretty much fall, and they're just released from the person too. They fall off.
Right. Because you mentioned before, if you bring it to their attention, there's a chance that they could just hit the play button again and add another 10 years on. So I didn't know what the best approach was to get the right information on how much and how much term is left without sparking a fire.
In most cases, well, the first thing is to know your rules. So find out what your statute of limitations are for your state and the different aspects. You can actually reach out to your local title company, attorney, underwriter, and they usually have a cheat sheet with the basic amount of time each of the liens applies. So you can get that from your title company often. And so that's a really cool lead in and of itself. But if you get that, you'll be able to look at the title search, the title commitment, and you can look at your cheat sheet and say, oh, that's falling off in 1 year because it was recorded 9 years ago. You can say this is going to have 3 more years. And if, let's say it's a regular creditor judgment, it's got 2 years, but it's been on there for 8 and such. Okay, I don't want to wait the whole 2 years and stuff. I can negotiate, and the further away it is, the more likely they are to negotiate a deeper discount. So again, try and find as many tools as you have in your arsenal to make it a good negotiation for you. I'll give you one more hint against liens that can actually be a huge benefit for you. There's something called a partial release that you can go after, which allows the creditor to release your property but still leave the lien in place so that they have an opportunity to continue to collect. And that might get you a discount a whole lot easier and a whole lot quicker than than the regular one would.
Yeah, like for example, if there's like a first mortgage, second mortgage, and there's like in a later position, and you can say, look, there's no equity in this property. You can either get $1,000 and release the lien, you still go after them, but there's no equity here. So I think, would you use those more in situations like that, or?
Yeah, no, you can use it in a number of different ways, especially in pre-foreclosures and tax deed sales and stuff like that, where you say, look, you're going to lose your lien all anyways. I'll give you blank to release it from this property. And you can still continue to go after what other collection attempts you may have, but you will have to release it from this property, or you're going to lose it anyways and you won't get anything. If you put it in that fashion, many times they'll go ahead and release.
That's a pretty cool little tidbit there. That's worth $120.
Oh, you just raised it.
It's $105.
$105.
Yeah. By the way, everybody, it goes up to $120 next week. I just thought I'd let you know. But again, the people on Facebook, this is the kind of value that we bring. It's $105 a month. Join Uncle Karl and Friends Mastermind. You get to learn great stuff like David's teaching, different people. We share a lot of really cool ways to make money. If you're serious about this business, join the mastermind, and there's other stuff out there too. In addition, I always tell people, don't rely totally on me. And that's why I have other people like Dave and other people come on too. But it's very inexpensive to learn a lot of stuff that years and years. How long have you been doing this business for?
20 years.
20 years. How many deals have you done?
Over 2,000.
That's probably a pretty good experience.
I've done one or two things.
Okay. So guys, any last questions? We need to wrap this.
Check and see, was there anything on the list that you had?
Probably. No, I can't get into it, so let's just see. Is there a chat?
Have a chat with, we might have missed a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there is much.
I'm looking at most of them here. There's a question from Monty that's asking you, what's your favorite lead source from all?
Yeah, I'm reading that. Yeah. What's your favorite lead source of all? Code violation, tax delinquent, foreclosures, REOs, etc. The answer is yes. And actually that is my answer, because all of them are great lead sources. But I would say it this way: if you can stack them, and you've heard that that's becoming a big, keyword and cliche or whatever you want to call it, where now we have list stackers and this and that. But if you can stack those pain points one on top of another, the more pain points you have, the better the lead. So if you have a tax delinquent, that's a great lead. But if you have a tax delinquent with code violations, man, that's a really good lead. If you have tax delinquent with code violations that happens to be an estate, that's a really, really good lead. If you've got tax delinquent with code violations, estate, and vacant, I'm going to send Uncle Karl to go chase that lead down. Yeah. You get the idea. So all of those are phenomenal lead sources. And if you add them to each other, that becomes an even better one.
And that's the thing too, like we do very little marketing. Almost all our stuff is going after deals. It's manpower time. We're not spending, 20,000 a month on mailers. We're not spending that kind of stuff. We spend it on looking at these lists and going after stuff. And then people bring us stuff also that they can't solve. So, some of the people are like, you don't have to spend tons of money to do this business. You don't have to. You just need the time. Or somebody asked, wow, there's another question where there's two people full-time. They're asking, how could they maximize everything? Because they're both working full-time. I think that's a good question. What would you say to that, Dave? If you got they're both working full time. They only have a little bit of time. What should they do, and how should they leverage other people?
Okay, no, that's a great question, and one of the things I do always tell, whether I'm coaching or whether I'm incorporating this into a new territory manager or whatnot, I will actually have them create a strengths weaknesses sheet, and basically it's kind of like on the whiteboard where you take the list and you have on one side all your strengths, and you fill out every single one of those strengths. If financial is a strength, great, put it down there. If your credit is a strength, great, put it down there. If you have the time, which in this case, I know that wasn't the case, that'll be on the weakness side. Your education, your skill sets. If you have if you know how to rehab, if you know how to make the calls, whatever your strengths are, you put it on the one side. The other side, you put your weaknesses, and in your case, it's time. And then you find associates to fill those weakness spots, and you work to your strengths. And then additionally, I will tell you this: you do not have to work this job, this business, full time to make a full time living. I always tell people you can work 40 hours a month and you'll have a six-figure business if you work 40 hours a month, not 40 hours a week. Now, understand, when I say that, I'm not telling you 40 hours including reading Rich Dad Poor Dad and building your CRM and stuff like that. No, I'm talking about looking at properties, making offers, calling leads. If you will do that 40 hours a month, you'll have a six-figure business. My recommendation is segment a certain amount of time each week for making those calls. I'll give you an example. So when you're making calls, and I think this will be a really good, another gold nugget, there's a right time and a wrong time to call. And it is also partially based on your list. If they are senior citizens, during the early part of the day is the right time to call. The average owners, though, are probably still working, so 6 to 8 p.m. is the right time to call Monday through Thursday. Friday is usually date night. Saturday all day is the best time to call. And Sunday is a horrible time to call. Friday is date night. They get their wiggles out on Saturday. That's right in the middle of the weekend. They're chill, they're relaxed. They've gotten their wiggles out on Friday. They still have Sunday to look forward to. They're at the most ease on Saturday. And then Sunday, they know they got to get ready for work. Then that's church day, family day, stuff like that. That's why I don't generally, and some may disagree with it, but that's my rules of thumb. And if you'll set aside 2 days, so here's what I'll say: take 2 hours, 2 days of the week for calls, and 1 day for research. So you got 3 days out of your 7-day work week. You'll have yourself a six-figure business.
I think that's great. The only thing I would add is maybe getting some virtual assistants.
Absolutely.
$3 to $5 an hour. You can and have them do some of the research, some of the stuff you don't want to do. I think that can help out, and that's
sure.
That would be in addition to that. But I agree exactly. 4 hours of calling. I think I probably average 2 to 3. I'm always getting caught up in the whirlwind. No, less than that.
No, you do more than that.
Okay, so maybe I do a little more than that. What do you say? 5 or 6?
I'd say probably 6 or 7.
6 or 7.
Yeah.
I call 6 or 7. Yeah. I do stupid stuff half the time. put out fires and whatever. So, but if you can be disciplined, like you said, 4 hours of that, 2 hours of research on these different lists, and have your VA search through and pull all the phone numbers and skip trace them for you, then that would be a great way to do a business, with full-time jobs. So.
Excellent. And I see we already got, you already got someone. Miss April has just joined the group.
Cool.
So welcome.
Thanks, April. The goats appreciate it. We're going to give them goat treats this week because of you. Special treats. Thanks to April. So.
There you go.
You're with the non-for-profit, right?
So anyways, guys, we're going to wrap up here. Like I said, we've got, and I talk about me, but it's like our joint venture partners are incredible. We have Maria here. Want to come say hey?
Come on over.
Brandon, Austin, come on over. We got a lot of other people. Joe, we got Erica, Mitch, Danaya, and that guy from Bulgaria, Stas.
Oh, that guy.
Hey, Stas.
Love your hair, man.
Stas got the Bulgarian haircut over there.
He got the Bulgarian haircut. I love it.
Stas, put your face on screen.
Erica.
And I said Erica, yeah. So we got great folks, and these are the ones that are making this happen. Like I said, they do everything. I give a little consulting advice, and then I'm like, hey, look at this deal Uncle Karl did. But it's really these guys that are out making it happen. Oh, Vicky and Andrea, sorry. That's what half of them bad. Vicky does a great job on the research. Andrea is the assistant. So I mean, I mentioned Danaya. She's great. So, we got a lot of great people that work with us, and that's how we're able to get this done.
Excellent.
Okay, guys. Join the mastermind. Going to learn a lot of great stuff. We're getting better organized so that we'll be able to have a better system for working with the joint venture people, because I've screwed up a few deals recently. I would say screwed up. I haven't paid them as much attention as I need to. And we want to be able to do deals and bring value. And